welcome back to our channel Pawnception. Today, we are cracking open the archives and blowing the dust off a specific encounter from 2015. I will be honest, if you were just scrolling through a chess database, you would probably skip right over. You will see the names, you will see the result, draw, and you will just, move on to find a game where someone actually won. And that would be a tragedy because this game, it is a thriller disguised as a statistic. It's one of those games that proves the result on the scoreboard often tells you absolutely nothing about the violence that happened on the board. We are looking at the clash between Dmitry Jakovenko and Boris Gelfand from the 2015 fight Grand Prix, Khanty-Mansiysk, Russia. And look, I know draw usually implies boring. It implies safety, maybe a quick handshake after 20 moves so everyone can go get dinner early. But this was a street fight. It was a street fight in a tuxedo. So before we get into the moves, and trust me, we have some wild moves to talk about. Let's set the stage. Who are these guys? Because the contrast in their styles is really what fuels this whole thing. You have to understand the dynamic here. That's what makes the matchup so juicy. In the white pieces, you have Dmitry Jakovenko. Now, in 2015, Jakovenko is the exemplar of the modern Russian school. He is technical. He is precise. He is incredibly solid. When you say technical, it means he is not usually the guy who sets the board on fire just for the sake of it. He is the python. He likes to get a very small, a microscopic advantage, maybe a slightly better pawn structure, maybe a slightly more active bishop, and then he squeezes you. He just grinds you down. He grinds you down for 6 hours until you crack. He loves control, so he is the technician. And in the black corner, Boris Gelfand, the legend. See, we were talking about a guy who played VCNN for the World Championship in 2012. He took it to tie breaks. By 2015, Gelfand is the veteran. He is known for two things. Immense resilient, you can hammer at him all day and he won't break. And arguably, the deepest opening preparation of his generation. So we have the technician versus the rock, the python versus the granite wall. And let's figure out how a game between two such solid positional players turned into absolute mayhem. This game goes from a quiet, subtle opening to, well, a king hunting a queen in the center of the board. It really is a complete narrative arc. It starts with a whisper, turns into a shout, and ends with a bang. Let's start with that whisper. The opening, Jakovenko opens with 1e4, Gelfand responds c5. We are in the Sicilian defense, 2nf3, d6, 3d4, cxd4, 4nxd4, nf6, 5nc3, a6, and specifically the Najdorf variation of Sicilian defense. The Cadillac of chess openings, the Najdorf is complex, sharp, and aggressive. It's basically black saying, I am not here to equalize and get a draw. I am here to create an imbalance and win. Usually, white response to this was standard rapid developing moves to control the center. But here, on move 6, Jakovenko does something interesting. He plays h3. Okay, let's unpack this. 6h3. To a casual observer or even a club player, that looks slow. Like, why move a rook pawn one square on the side of the board when you could be developing a bishop or a knight? Isn't the rule, develop your pieces? It does look slow. And for a long time, moves like this were considered a waste of time. But in modern chess, h3 is venomous. It's a very subtle, multi-purpose move. By playing h3, Jakovenko is doing two things. First, it's prophylactic. Prophylactic meaning preventing a threat before it happens. He is preventing black from playing a piece to the g4 square later. He is taking away a landing strip for Gelfand's pieces. But more importantly, the second purpose is aggressive. Jakovenko is signaling that he intends to play g4 himself. He wants to launch a pawn storm on the king side, but he wants to do it on his own terms. So he is not rushing into the standard English attack where you just throw everything immediately. He is preparing. He is saying, I am going to suffocate you on the king side, but I am going to take my time doing it. I am going to build a vice grip. It's that technical squeezing style we talked about. So he is setting up a slow strangle. How does Gelfand react as he sit back and build a fortress? But not at all. And this is where the clash of styles kicks in. Gelfand sees Jakovenko's slow build-up and decides to strike immediately. He plays 6e5, hitting the center immediately. And then he follows up with a move that I absolutely love. He plays 7h5. He pushes his own rook pawn all the way up the board to meet white's. Read what the psychology of that. Jakovenko played h3 to prepare g4. And Gelfand just says no. Gelfand plays h5 to physically stop g4. He creates a blockade. He says, you want to expand on a king side? Too bad. I am putting a stop sign right here, but doesn't playing h5 that early weakening his own position. Usually you want to castle a king side right. If you push the pawns in front of your king, you are opening the gates. It's a massive commitment. Gelfand is loosening his own shelter. But that's the trade-off he is willing to make. He is betting that the strategic gain of stopping White's attack is worth the long-term risk to his king. Jakovenko chooses structure over chaos. He is building a fortress before marching to war. Gelfand follows up with b5 on the other side of the board. So he is expanding on both wings. He is taking space everywhere. Now the Najdorf spirit shows its teeth. He is telling Jakovenko, you wanted a slow technical game. I am going to make this messy. So by move 12 or 13, the board looks a mess. Just looking at the position, you can feel the potential energy. Jakovenko is moving his knights to d5 and c3. Very centralized. Very classic. Black has fianchetto his bishop to b7, aiming down the long diagonal like a sniper. But here is the thing. No pieces have really been traded yet. It's like two boxes circling, muscles tense, waiting for the first punch. It's that quiet before the storm. The structure is asymmetrical. White has control of certain squares. Black has this weird, expansive pawn structure. And for a technical player like Jakovenko, this is tricky. He has to be very careful not to let Gelfand activity overwhelm him. And that tension finally snaps in the middle game. White castles, king safe, rook connected soon. Everything harmonious. Black plays QE6. The queen steps back, eyeing h3, AI2, and supporting b5, b4. It's a multi-purpose move, defense, attack, coordination. White brings the rook to e1. Jakovenko ready for whatever comes. Black pushes b4. This is the Najdorf's classic spear thrust. The pawn chases white knight from c3 and claims queen side space. White replies nd5. Gelfand eliminates the monster knight. When an enemy piece dominates your house, sometimes you just remove it. Now white has a pawn on d5, space advantage, but also a fixed pawn that could be attacked later. Stiftures are like long-term contracts. You sign them now, you pay later. Black plays qf5, a multi-purpose queen move. It eyes c2, h3, and supports nb6 or nc5. Around move 18, the rooks come off the board, rxc2, rc1, rxc1. The heavy artillery is being exchanged. This is the ignition point. The rooks are gone, which opens up the board, and suddenly the minor pieces, the knights and bishops, have a lot more room to operate. White gain coordination and king safety. Black gain queenside momentum and flexible queen activity. The position is balanced but alive. It's like two boxes circling, testing distance, loaning rhythm. At club level, players rush here. At Grandmaster level, they listen. They feel the position like musicians feeling tempo. And this brings us to the moment where the game just goes off the rails. Move 21. Jakovenko plays bx4. He just ignores the black knight. He ignores the monster coming in his house and goes shopping. He captures a pawn on the other side of the board. That is incredibly gutsy. He is essentially saying, yeah, nice knight you have there, threatening my entire family. But I am just going to grab some free material over here on b4. Gelfand plays 21 d3. For the viewers visualizing this, there is this giant black knight sitting on d3, deep in a white territory. It looks terrifying. It's right above the white queen. It's what we call an octopus. It has tentacles reaching everywhere. A knight on d3 is a catastrophe for white strategically. It forks the queen, rook, and the bishop. It cuts the board in half so white pieces can't communicate. It's a bone in white throat. Usually, if your opponent plants a knight that deep in your territory, you kill it immediately. You don't care if you have to give up a bishop or a rook. You cannot let a knight live on d3. It's too dominant. You just get it off the board. The textbook response is to sacrifice material to remove the intruder. But Jakovenko doesn't take it. And that is the brilliance and the extreme risk of this game. Jakovenko calculates that if he takes the knight immediately, he ruins his own coordination and gives Gelfand the initiative. It changes the nature of the game completely. Suddenly, it's not about structure anymore. It's not about technical precision in the traditional sense. It becomes a race. It's pure dynamics. Jakovenko is betting, can I use this extra material I just grabbed to win the game before that knight on d3 kills me? And this kicks off the fireworks section. The queens start dancing. Move 22, Jakovenko plays qc6, checking the king. Then in the next move, white plays q8, checking again. And then for a moment, it looks like it might be a draw by repetition. White checks, black moves, white checks again. In high-level chess, this happens a lot when things get too scary. Both players just agree to a draw to 0 losing. They call the ripcord, but they don't stop. They keep playing. The tension is escalating rather than diffusing. They enter this phase between move 25 and 40, where the board just opens up completely. White plays rd4. Rook lifts are like elevators in skyscrapers. Pieces suddenly appear where opponents don't expect them. Black strikes with f5. This is a bold move. Gelfand expands in the center and king side, challenging white rook on e4, pass e4. This rook lift idea from Jakovenko is elegant, like repositioning a telescope to see a hidden star. Black advances e4. Now the center explodes with tension. The pawn clamps down on f3 and opens lines for black's pieces. At move 27 and 28, it feels like a bar brawl. Jakovenko calmly collects material. The a6 pawn disappears, weakening black's queenside structure. Black responds with nxb4. The knight is just hopping around, creating havoc. And notice the shift in safety. Early in the game, the kings were tucked away. Pine pawns. Now, the pawn cover is stripped away. The queens are zipping around q6 plus qf5 plus checking and probing. They are just completely exposed. It's what we call a heavy piece in game, but with very exposed kings. And usually exposed kings mean checkmate is coming soon, or perpetual check. But either player can find the knockout blow, yet neither wants to back down. By move 40, they have reached the time control. In classical chess, you have a set amount of time to make your first 40 moves. If you don't, you lose. Once you hit move 40, you get extra time added to your clock, so the pressure lifts slightly. But the position on the board is barely holding together. Move 40 is interesting because we see momentum shift. The bishop steps forward, checking the king and activating with tempo, a precise move. Jakovenko says, your attack stops here, the board is clearing out. It is, but look at what is left. You have queens on the board, you have a few pawns, and you have that annoying black knight still causing trouble. Now on f4 and the king hunt. This is the part that absolutely blew my mind when I reviewed the game. We are in the end game now, move 45 and onward. Usually, in an endgame with queens on the board, you hide your king. You build a bunker. Rule number 1, king safety. If the queens are on the board, one wrong step and it's checkmate. You keep your head down. Jakovenko, he takes his king for a walk. He takes him on a marathon into the line of fire. We move 48, kf2. Jakovenko is marching his king up the board toward the enemy pieces. Black pushes g4. White captures the g4 pawn. Black checks with qg2. This is pure tactical warfare now. And there comes move 50, k3. It looks insane, but it's correct. Jakovenko trusts his calculation. He is moving towards the center. It's incredible. There is a famous theory by Wilhelm Steinitz, the first world champion, who said the king is a fighting piece, but usually he meant in the end game when the queens are gone. Jakovenko is doing this with heavy artillery still firing at him. It's nerve-wracking just to read the notation. Black strikes in d5. A powerful check. The knight jumps like a spark into dry grass. Move 51, kd4. The white king is standing on d4. That is the dead center of the board. Dead center. There is enemy queen and knight swirling around him. It's like standing in the middle of a highway during rush hour. But here is the genius, the technical genius of Jakovenko coming back into play. He realized that the center was actually the safest place because the geometry of the board, if he stayed on the back rank, Gelfand's queen and knight could weave a mating net. They could trap him against the edge of the board by moving to the center. The king has more squares to escape to. He walked into the eye of the storm because it was the only calm spot, so it's active defense. The only way out is through. He is running toward the danger to escape the danger. And this sets up the climax. Move 52. Gelfand plays qd4 check. The black queen is right there. This is the moment where the listener needs to visualize the board. The white king is on d5. The black queen checks in. But look at the board state. This forces a specific response. And the response is move 53. kxd4. The king captures the queen. That's the final move at the game. Pause and visualize that for a second. The game ends with the white king, the piece you are supposed to protect at all costs. The VIP standing in the absolute center of the board, having just physically eaten the enemy queen. And once the king captures the queen, look at what is left on the board. White has a king. Black has. Oh well. Looking at the final position, the material is insufficient. You cannot checkmate a lone king with just a queen and knight or whatever specifically remains. There is nothing left to fight with. The violence has reached such a peak that there is literally nobody left to fight. It's like they both knocked each other out simultaneously. That is the perfect analogy. The queen capture is the final mic drop. It's a draw not because they were boring, but because they annihilated each other's possibilities to win. They fought until the ammunition ran out. In European football, a 0-0 draw can be a boring defensive game where nobody shoots. But this This was a 5-5 draw where everyone scored, the stadium caught fire, and the referee got tackled. Just because the point is split doesn't mean the game wasn't decisive in its own way. So let's bring this down to earth before we go. Here is a thought to leave you with. We talked about Jakovenko being a technical and safe player. But in this game, he took arguably the biggest risks. He allowed a knight to live in his camp. He walked his king into the center. It makes you wonder, are the safe players actually the biggest gamblers when the chips are down? That's a fascinating question. Do they rely on their calculations so much that they walk tightrope that aggressive players wouldn't dare step on? The logic of the insane. Sometimes the biggest gamble is trusting your own brain over your fear. Something to think about. Thanks for watching Pawnception. Please do like, subscribe, and please share with fellow chess enthusiasts. We will catch you on the next one. Checkmate or stalemate like this one. See you next time.